The cold is the first thing you learn here. It is not a natural cold. It does not come from ice or wind. It is the cold of absolute preservation. They keep the data crypts freezing to stop the sacred machinery from overheating. Flesh is cheap. Coolant is expensive. So we freeze. I have worked at Station Scintilla Prime for 30 years. My hands have never been warm in all that time. You learn to work through the shivering. You learn to let the numbness become a part of you. It is easier that way. My station is Sector 7 Gamma. It looks exactly like every other sector. Rows of cogitator banks stretching up into the darkness. The ceiling is lost behind layers of cabling and pipes. Sometimes condensation drips from high above. It lands on your neck like a frozen insect. You do not look up. Looking up is inefficient. Inefficiency is a sin. We are taught that from birth. The God Emperor requires our focus, not our curiosity. So I look at the screen. Green phosphor light. Endless streams of raw data scrolling past. Most of it is noise. Static from the void. Echoes of dead worlds. Garbled transmission headers from ships that turned to dust millennia ago. My job is simple. Sacred duty. I filter the noise. I watch the streams for patterns that do not belong. I flag them. I purge them. I ensure the purity of the signal. It is a holy task. That is what the priests tell us during the mandatory morning sermons. They tell us we are the ears of the Imperium. If we stop listening, humanity goes deaf. I believed them once. Now I just believe in the quota. Shift 47. That is what the chronometer says. It does not matter what day it is outside. There is no outside here. There is only the hum, the sound of a million spinning drives. A Gregorian chant of mechanics. It vibrates in your teeth. It rattles the fluids in your inner ear. After a year, you stop hearing it. It just becomes the base layer of your existence. Silence would hurt more. Silence would mean something has stopped, and things must never stop. I press the rune keys. Input, verify, purge. Input, verify, purge. My fingers know the dance better than my mind does. The rhythm is hypnotic. Click-clack, click-clack. Every workstation around me makes the same sound. 1,000 Lex mechanics typing in perfect unison. We are a single organism made of meat and obedience. Sometimes I wonder if I am the only one truly awake. Perhaps the others are just servitors who haven't been lobotomized yet. It is a dangerous thought. I push it away. Thinking about the nature of your own existence lowers productivity. The supervisors notice lower productivity. They are tall men in red robes who glide between the aisles. They do not walk. They drift like predatory ghosts. They have ocular implants that can see thermal patterns. They know if you are working too slow. They know if your heart rate spikes with unsanctioned thought. I keep my breathing even. I keep my eyes on the green light. Input, verify. Purge. The air smells of recycled sweat and ozone. And underneath it all, the cloying sweetness of sacred incense. It is pumped through the vents to mask the smell of desperate humanity. It cages in the back of your throat. It tastes like burnt sugar and old dried flowers. I hate it, but I inhale it deeply. It is the scent of safety. As long as the incense is burning, the system is working. So I am safe. I am a good cog. Nothing can hurt a good cog. You tell yourself this lie every shift. It is the only armor you have. Then it happened. It was so small. A microsecond of dissonance in the grand symphony. I was processing a batch of deep void telemetry, standard junk data, background radiation fluctuations from the halo stars. My fingers were moving on autopilot. Purge, purge, purge. And then a click. Not from my keyboard, from the data stream itself. It wasn't a sound in the room. It was a sound in the headset I wear to monitor audio-encoded signals. Usually, it's just a wash of white noise, like standing on a beach made of static. But this was distinct. A sharp, wet click, like a tongue snapping against the roof of a mouth, or a latch closing on a heavy metal box. It was there, and then it was gone. Buried under terabytes of static. My hand stopped. The rhythm broke. Click, clack, click. Silence. The silence at my station felt louder than the hum. I felt a sudden spike of adrenaline, a cold prickle at the base of my skull. Had anyone else heard it? Of course not. Only I was wearing this specific headset monitoring this specific frequency band. I should have just continued. The protocols are clear. If it doesn't match recognized signal patterns, it is noise. Noise is to be purged. To hesitate is to waste the Emperor's time. I raised my hand to strike the purge key. It is a large brass button polished smooth by decades of use. My finger hovered over it. Just another piece of junk data. Forgotten forever in a fraction of a second. That is how it always is. But the click echoed in my memory. It felt intentional. It felt like something trying to be heard. Or perhaps something trying to enhance the silence that followed it. I did something I had not done in 10 years. I hit the review rune. The stream reversed. The green characters flowed backward up the screen. It felt illicit, like undressing someone with your eyes. I was violating the forward momentum of the administratum. I found the timestamp. Or 4:51:99 standard Terra time. I isolated the 6-second audio fragment. I played it again. Static, 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 click, static. My breath hitched. It was real. It wasn't a hallucination brought on by fatigue and incense fumes. It was an embedded signal. Someone had put it there, deep in the noise where no one ever looks. Why who sends a single click across the void? It could be a glitch, old machinery misfiring, a corrupted voxcaster on some dying outpost. That was the rational explanation, the safe explanation. But my stomach turned over. It felt like a piece of ice had been swallowed whole. I looked around. Had the supervisors noticed my pause, I saw one of the red robes at the far end of the aisle. He was facing away from me, administering a stimulant injection to a flagging worker. I was safe. For now. I looked back at the screen. The data fragment was small, infinitesimally small. It carried a header tag I didn't recognize. Not standard Imperial Navy, not Mechanicus, not standard civilian traffic. It was just a string of archaic alphanumeric characters. And then I saw the secondary tag. Buried deep in the metadata, it was barely visible, a ghost in the machine code. Purple level encryption. My blood ran cold. Purple is not for us. We are green level clearance. Maybe yellow on a good day if we have been promoted to senior scribe. Purple is high. Purple is sector command level. Purple is do not read under penalty of servitorization. Why was purple data floating in a junk stream? It must have been a mistake, a misfiling by some equally bored clerk 1,000 light years away. That happened. The bureaucracy is so vast, it constantly eats its own tail. Secrets get lost in the trash all the time. I knew what I had to do. The only safe thing. Purge it. Pretend I never saw it. Let it vanish into the entropy of history. No one would ever know. I moved my hand back to the big brass button. It was warm from the internal mechanisms of the console. Comforting. Just press it. Make it go away. Return to the safety of the rhythm. Click-clack. But I didn't press it. I stared at that purple level tag. It pulsed slowly, like a vein in a sick man's temple. Curiosity is a sin. I know this. I have repeated it 1,000 times in prayer. But I am human, and humans are flawed. We always want to look behind the curtain, even if we know there is only horror waiting there. just a peek, to see what a purple file looks like, just to know that I knew something the others didn't. A tiny secret rebellion against 30 years of freezing cold monotony. I didn't open it. Not then. I didn't dare. But I didn't purge it either. I did something worse. I flagged it with a low priority save for later review tag. It hid the file in my local buffer. It removed it from the mainstream. I stole the data. Technically, it sat there on my local drive. A tiny radioactive isotope burning a hole in my workstation. I returned to work. Input, verify, purge. The rhythm returned. But it was different now. Every time I hit a key, I heard that click in my head. Wet. Sharp. Deliberate. It wasn't just noise anymore. It was a voice, and it was waiting for me. The rest of the shift was an eternity. Minutes stretched into hours. I felt physically ill. The incense suddenly smelled like funeral flowers. The hum of the servers sounded like a threat. They knew what I had done. The machine spirits knew I was harboring impure data. I expected the screen to flash red. I expected security servitors to stomp down the aisle. But nothing happened. The universe is indifferent to our small sins. Until it isn't. When the shift end klaxon finally sounded, I nearly jumped out of my skin. It is a horrible noise. A grinding mechanical shriek that signals permission to stop working for 8 hours. We all stood up in unison. 1,000 chairs scraping against metal grating. We filed out in silence. Head down. Eyes on the heels of the worker in front of you. Do not make eye contact. Do not speak unless spoken to. I could feel the data on my workstation behind me. It felt like I had left a loaded weapon on my desk. I wanted to run back and delete it, but that would draw attention. Running draws attention. So I walked. Slow, measured steps toward the dormitories, toward a sleepless night. The click followed me. It was in the sound of my boots on the deck plates. It was in the dripping of the condensation pipes. Click. You have done something terrible, Kyle. Click. And you are going to do something worse. You know you are. I didn't sleep. Sleep is for the innocent. I lay on my cot in the dormitory, staring at the rivets in the ceiling above me. I counted them until the numbers lost meaning. 4,362 rivets. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the blinking green cursor. It was pulsing, beckoning, like a lighthouse on a dark shore. I told myself I would purge it first thing next shift. I would go and cite a corrupted buffer error and wipe the local drive. Standard procedure. No one would ask questions. It was the smart thing to do. It was the only thing to do if I wanted to live to see 40. But I knew I was lying to myself. The curiosity was a physical ache. It was an itch under the skin that I couldn't scratch. We are taught that ignorance is a virtue, a blessed state that keeps the soul pure. But when you have stared at raw data for 30 years, you begin to wonder what it all means. You begin to hunger for context. Just a crumb of truth in a mountain of lies. The next shift was a night cycle. Skeleton crew. The data crypt is even colder at night. They lower the power to the environmental scrubbers to save energy. The air gets thin. Ice forms on the metal casings of the cogitators. Most of the stations were empty. Just a few of us scattered like dying embers in the vast dark hall. I sat at my station. I didn't load the main stream immediately. I just sat there, listening to the hum. It felt accusatory now. The machine spirits knew what I was hiding in their sacred memory banks. I could feel their displeasure, a low-grade vibration in the metal of my desk. I reached into my pocket. My fingers found it. The Aquila coin. It was standard-issue currency minted on Terra itself, or so they claimed. Mine was chipped on one edge, a jagged flaw in the sacred double-headed eagle. I had carried it for 10 years. I rubbed my thumb over the chip. back and forth until the rough metal dug into my skin. It was a grounding exercise. Pain is clarity. Pain reminds you that you are real and the consequences are real. I took a deep breath. The thin, icy air burned my lungs. I keyed the sequence to open the local buffer. There it was. File 77 Delta Omicron. It looked so harmless on the screen, just a string of green text. But next to it, the tags had updated. The automated system had finally crawled through the backlog during the night. It wasn't just purple level anymore. A new tag had appeared, flashing slowly. Burn flagged extremis. My heart hammered against my ribs. A burn flag means it carries viral scrap code. Or worse, heretical data that can corrupt just by being seen. The protocol is immediate hard shutdown of the terminal. Report to the nearest commissariat office for precautionary sterilization. That usually means a bolt pistol to the back of the head. I knew this. I knew it as surely as I knew my own name, but my finger didn't move to the shutdown rune. It moved to execute. Why, I still ask myself that. Maybe I wanted it to be over. Maybe I hated the endless gray monotony of my life more than I feared death. Or maybe I was already corrupted. Maybe the click had already done its work just by being heard. I pressed the key. It didn't make a grand sound, just a soft, plastic thud. The sound of a life ending. The screen didn't change at first. Then the static came. It wasn't the gentle white noise of the void. This was violent. A screech of digital agony that bypassed my headset and seemed to vibrate directly in my skull. Patterns flared on the monitor, fractal geometries that hurt to look at. They twisted in ways that standard Imperial displays shouldn't be able to twist. It wasn't data. It was madness encoded into light. I tried to look away, but I couldn't. Deep in the chaotic swirl, for just a fraction of a second, there was an image. Not a shape. More like a coordinate, a location, and a symbol I didn't recognize. It looked like an eye, but it was weeping, not tears. It was weeping stars. The beauty of it was terrifying. It felt ancient. It felt like it had been waiting 1 billion years just for me to see it. I felt a trickle of blood run from my nose, hot and metallic. It dripped onto my hand, startling me. I gasped and reached for the power cutoff. Too late. The screen went black. Not just standby black. Dead black. The green phosphor hum died instantly. Silence slammed into the immediate area, and then the lights went out. Not all of them. Just my row. Sector 7 Gamma plunged into absolute darkness, while the rest of the hall remained lit. It wasn't a malfunction. It was too precise. It was a quarantine. I sat frozen in the dark. The only light came from the distant rows, casting long cage-like shadows across my floor. I could hear the other few workers stop typing. They were looking. They knew what a localized blackout meant. It meant someone had tripped a major security failsafe. I was exposed. I sat there, blood drying on my upper lip, clutching my chipped coin so hard my knuckles turned white. I didn't breathe. I just waited for the sound of heavy boots. I waited for the red robes to drift out of the shadows. The screen was dead. But the image was burned onto my retinas. The weeping eye. It was still there when I closed my own eyes. It hasn't left me since. They didn't come that night. That was the worst part. I sat in the dark for an hour, frozen, waiting for the sound of boots on metal grating. Then the lights just flickered back on. My screen rebooted. Standard green Administratum logo. Blessed be the Omnissiah. It was as if nothing had happened. No alarms, no armed guards, just the hum returning indifferent and steady. I finished my shift. I don't remember doing it. My hands worked while my mind screamed. They were playing with me. I knew it. You don't trip a purple level alarm and just get away with it. They wanted to see what I would do. They were giving me enough rope to hang myself. I walked back to the hab blocks that morning. The corridors were crowded with the day shift workers heading in. Usually, I am invisible in this gray tide of humanity. Just another face pale from lack of sunlight. Today, I felt like I was glowing. I felt like the image of the weeping eye was tattooed on my forehead. Every glance from a stranger felt like an accusation. Did they know? Had they been told to watch me? Paranoia is a heavy coat. Once you put it on, you can never take it off. It clings to you. It makes you sweat. 3 days passed. 3 days of suffocating normalcy. I went to work. I filtered data. I ate my ration bars. I'd tried to sleep. But the world had changed. The shadows in the corners of the data crypt seemed deeper. The red-robed supervisors seemed to linger near my row just a few seconds longer than usual. Maybe they always did. Maybe I was just noticing it now. That is the genius of their terror. They don't have to do anything. They just let your own guilt eat you alive. I started hearing things. Echoes in the corridor that didn't match the footsteps around me. A second set of boots always 10 paces behind. When I stopped, they stopped. When I turned, there was no one there. Just tired workers shuffling past eyes on the floor. I was losing my mind. I hoped I was losing my mind. Because if I wasn't, the alternative was worse. The incense tasted stronger now. It used to be background noise. Now it was thick cloying. It coated my tongue. It smelled less like worship and more like a funeral parlor, covering up the smell of decay. I kept my hand in my pocket, rubbing the chipped edge of the Aquila coin until my thumb was raw. Pain was the only thing that felt real. "You look sick, 734. It was just a passing comment from worker 9 Beta in the nutrient dispenser line. He didn't mean anything by it. Probably. But I nearly dropped my tray. Was he testing me? Was he one of them? "I'm fine," I said. My voice sounded brittle, like dry leaves crumbing. He just shrugged and moved on. I couldn't finish my meal. The recycled starch paste tasted like ash. I thought I tasted a metallic tang in it. Drugged, poisoned, or just fear I threw it away. Waste is a sin. Add it to the list. That night, I returned to my hab unit. Unit 44G. It's a metal box 2 meters by 3. It is mine. The only private space I have ever known. I always lock the door. Mechanical deadbolt. 3 full turns. It's a ritual. Click. 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 I know I did it that morning. I remember the feel of the cold metal key in my hand. But when I came back, the door wasn't latched. It was just resting against the frame, a hairline crack of darkness showing. I stood there for a long time, just staring at that millimeter of space. It was a message, louder than any shout. "We can get in. We can get you anywhere." I pushed the door open slowly. Nothing was missing. My spare uniform was folded on the cot. My data slate was on the small shelf. Everything was exactly as I left it. Almost exactly. My pillow was slightly indented, as if someone had been sitting on my cot waiting, or just watching me sleep. I didn't sleep that night either. I sat on the floor back against the door, clutching a heavy spanner I'd stolen from maintenance. It wouldn't stop them. I knew that. But it felt better to hold something heavier than a coin. The silence in my room was total, except for my own breathing, and the pounding of my heart, which sounded like a countdown. The refectory is the loudest place on the station. It is a cavernous hall that smells of boiled starch and recycled protein. 5,000 workers eating in 20-minute shifts. The sound is a physical wall. Spoons scraping metal bowls, boot heels on grate flooring, the endless low murmur of sanctioned conversation. I usually like the noise. It drowns out the hum of the machines. It lets you be alone in a crowd. Today it felt like a trap. Every exit seemed too far away. I sat at the end of a long table near the waste reclamation chutes. I was pushing gray nutrient paste around my bowl, trying to look normal, trying to look like a man who hadn't slept with a spanner in his hand. Then the noise seemed to dip, just a little, like a breath held in collective fear. Someone sat down next to me, not across from me, right next to me, shoulder to shoulder, too close for standard social protocols. I didn't look up at first. I saw his sleeve out of the corner of my eye. It wasn't the gray, rough spun of a standard worker. It was high-grade fabric, deep midnight blue, crisp, clean, no oil stains, no frayed cuffs. It was the uniform of someone who doesn't have to do manual labor, someone who directs it. My heart started a hard, slow thumping against my ribs. It felt huge, deafening. I was sure he could hear it over the cafeteria noise. "Scholar Kyle," he said. His voice was soft, cultured. It didn't belong in the underdecks. It belonged in high spires where the air is real. I looked up. He was an unremarkable man. Thin face, pale eyes. He looked like a mid-level accountant, except for his smile. It didn't reach those pale eyes. And when he smiled, I saw it. One of his canines was replaced with polished silver. It glinted under the harsh lumen strips. A small, expensive augmentation. "Sir," I said. My voice didn't crack. I was proud of that small mercy. "Eat." "Please," he said, gesturing to my bowl of gray sludge. "We must maintain our strength for the God Emperor's work." He didn't have a tray. He hadn't come here to eat. "Just a routine audit," he continued. He folded his hands on the table. "Manicured fingernails. Sector 7 Gamma experienced a micro-surge 3 cycles ago. You were on duty." I nodded. Stiffly. "Yes, sir. A blown relay, they said. I was lying. He knew I was lying. I knew he knew I was lying. It was a terrible silent play we were performing. Of course. A relay." He tapped one clean finger on the dirty table. "Tap! Tap! Tap!" It sounded exactly like the click I had heard in the headset. My stomach lurched. "We found some irregularities in the buffer logs," he said softly. "Data phantoms. Probably nothing. But we have to be thorough." He leaned in slightly. Just an inch. The smell of expensive, genuine rose water cologne hit me. It was sickeningly sweet over the stench of the refectory. "Did you see anything unusual before the lights went out, Adele? Anything out of place?" This was it. The chance to confess, to beg for mercy. They might just turn me into a servitor if I confessed now. It would be a simpler life. No more fear. Just endless, mindless tasks. It sounded almost appealing. "No, sir," I whispered. "Just the darkness." He looked at me for a long beat. His eyes seemed to dismantle me, peeling back layers of skin and bone to see the rotting guilt underneath. Then he smiled again. That flash of silver. "Good," he said. "Vigilance is our shield, scholar. Never forget that." He stood up, smoothly, quietly. He placed a hand on my shoulder, just for a second. His hand was incredibly cold, cold enough to feel through my uniform. It felt like the touch of a corpse that hadn't quite stopped moving. "The Emperor protects those who protect his secrets," he said. And then he was gone, swallowed by the sea of gray uniforms. The noise of the refectory crashed back in. Loud, chaotic, normal. But I couldn't breathe. The spot on my shoulder where he had touched me felt frozen. I stood up. My chair scraped loudly, but no one looked. They were all terrified to look. They knew what it meant when a man in midnight blue sits next to you. I made it to the washroom just in time. I fell to my knees in front of the waste trench. I retched until there was nothing left but bitter yellow bile. I had purged my stomach, but the data was still in my head. And now, they had my scent. I didn't go back to work the next day. I couldn't. To walk back into that data crypt would be to walk into my own grave. I stayed in my HAB unit, waiting. I knew they wouldn't come during the day shift. Too many witnesses. too much disruption to the sacred quota. They would come at night, when the corridors were empty, when screams could be easily muffled by heavy blast doors. I spent the hours packing. It was a pitiful task. 30 years of life, and it all fit into a small canvas satchel. 2 ration bars I had hoarded, a small water purification straw, and the coin. Always the coin. I held it tight. The sharp edge of the chip bit into my palm. It was the only thing I owned that was truly mine. Everything else belonged to the administratum, even the clothes on my back, even the blood in my veins. I sat on the edge of my cot as the artificial twilight dimmed to artificial night. The hab block grew quiet. Just the hum of the air recyclers and the occasional cough from a neighboring cell. I watched the door. It was a simple slab of plasteel. I had always thought it was strong. Now it looked like paper. Midnight passed. Then 01, 0. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe the man with the silver tooth had just been an accountant. Maybe I was just a paranoid old man who needed sleep. Hope is a cruel thing. It makes you relax just enough for the blow to hurt more. At 01:43, the air changed. I smelled it before I heard them. Ozone. Sharp electric metallic. The smell of high-yield energy cells charging up. It seeped under the doorframe. My stomach dropped. They hadn't just sent overseers. They had sent a kill team. Then came the knock. It wasn't a knock. It was a hammer blow. The whole door shuddered in its frame. Dust drifted down from the ceiling rivets. It was the sound of absolute authority. Citizen Kyle 734. The voice was amplified. Mechanical. Stripped of all humanity. Open by order of His Holy Inquisition. The word hung in the air. Inquisition. It was the word we all feared more than death. Death is just an end. The Inquisition is an eternity of dying. I didn't answer. I didn't move toward the door. I moved toward the vent. It was small, maintenance access only. I had spent 3 hours loosening the rusty bolts with my stolen spanner. It was my only way out. My only way down. Breaching the mechanical voice said, "No emotion, just a statement of fact." I kicked the vent cover free. It clattered loudly on the metal floor. Too loud. I heard the whine of a melta-cutter starting up outside my door. Orange light began to eat through the plasteel hinges. Molten metal dripped onto my floor, sizzling. I shoved my satchel into the dark hole. It smelled of ancient dust and grease. I squeezed my shoulders in. It was tight. Painfully tight. Metal edges scraped the skin off my back through my tunic. I pushed with my legs, wriggling like a worm in the corpse of a giant machine. Behind me, the door gave way with a screech of tortured metal. "Subject is fleeing," the voice boomed. It sounded like it was right next to my ear. Red light flooded the room behind me, targeting lumens. I scrambled faster. Blind panic took over. I didn't care about the noise anymore. I just had to get away from that red light. I tumbled around a sharp bend in the ductwork just as the first shot was fired. The sound was deafening in the confined space. Heat washed over my feet. The air where I had been a second ago was instantly superheated to plasma. I didn't look back. I crawled. Tears streamed down my face, mixing with the dust. I wasn't Scholar Kale anymore. I wasn't a loyal servant of the throne. I was meat. I was prey. And the hunt had begun. The siren started a few seconds later. A wailing banshee scream that echoed through the miles of ductwork. It was singing my name. "Run, Kyle. Run until your heart bursts. It won't be enough." I crawled until my hands bled. Gravity was my only guide. Down. Always. Down. Away from the lights. Away from the organized, neat rows of the administratum. The ductwork changed as I descended. It stopped being smooth, cold plasteel. It became rusted iron slick with unidentifiable slime. The air changed, too. The sterile chill of the data crypts was gone. It was replaced by heat. Wet, suffocating heat that clung to your skin like a diseased film. And the smell. God Emperor, the smell. It was the stench of 1 billion people living and dying in the dark. Rotting food, human waste, rancid chemical runoff. It hit me like a physical blow when I finally kicked open a rusted grate and fell onto a swaying catwalk. I retched, dry and painful. My stomach was already empty. I lay there on the grating, gasping for breath in the thick air. Below me, through the mesh, I could see fires, oil drums burning with smoky, sputtering flames. People moved around them, shambling shapes in rags. They didn't look like Imperial citizens. They looked like survivors of a shipwreck that hadn't ended for 10,000 years. I had reached the sump, the bowels of the hive city. Here, there was no quota. There were no red-robed overseers, only the brutal arithmetic of survival. I needed to keep moving. If I stayed on the catwalk, I was a target. My uniform, even torn and filthy from the vents, marked me. It was too gray, too clean. I climbed down a shaking ladder. Rungs were missing. I nearly fell twice. When my boots hit the solid ground, it squelched. Mud or something worse. I didn't want to know. I kept my head down, pulling my collar up. I passed things that might have once been human. Twisted bodies huddled in alcoves, coughing wetly. Eyes that glowed with chem addiction in the dark. Fresh meat, someone whispered from a shadowed doorway. I didn't look. I walked faster. My hand went to my pocket. The Aquila coin was still there. It felt absurd now. A tiny piece of pure silver in a world made of rust. It could buy me food, or it could get my throat cut. I chose hunger, for now. But hunger is a patient master. By the third day, time was meaningless here. Without the shift klaxons, I was desperate. I saw a vendor selling skewers of charred meat from a rusted cart. It smelled like burnt hair. But it was food. He was distracted, arguing with a massive brute of a worker over payment. I didn't think. Instinct took over. Animal instinct. I grabbed a skewer from the edge of the cart and ran. I didn't look back. I hid behind a leaking coolant pipe and ate it. It was tough, greasy, and tasted of carcinogens. It was the best thing I had ever eaten. I cried while I chewed. Scholar Kyle was dead. He died the moment he stole that meat. I was just another rat in the sump now. I needed a place to sleep. Real sleep, not just passing out from exhaustion in a corner. I found a sub-basement that looked abandoned. It was flooded with ankle-deep black water. But there was a dry patch of concrete in the far corner, raised above the filth. It was hidden behind a collapsed bulkhead. Perfect. I waded through the sludge. My boots were ruined. My skin itched constantly now. I reached the dry platform and collapsed. I was safe for a few hours. Maybe. I rolled onto my back, staring up at the dripping ceiling, and then I saw it. Scratched into the concrete above me. Crude, hasty, but unmistakable. It was the eye, the weeping eye from the forbidden file. It wasn't exactly the same. This one looked rougher, more tribal, but the geometry was identical. My blood ran cold, colder than the sump water. Was it a coincidence? In a city of billions, had I just stumbled upon the one spot marked by heresy? Or was I being guided? I traced the lines of the eye with my shaking finger. It felt warm to the touch, pulsing with a faint residual heat. I wasn't just hiding in the dark. I had crawled straight into the belly of the beast I was running from, and it knew I was here. Hunger forces you to do stupid things. It forces you out of the shadows. I had to go to the trade hub. Hub is too grand a word. It was a collapsed junction where 3 sewage tunnels met. People traded by the light of burning chemical sludge, rags for fungus bars, clean water for shotgun shells, secrets for another day of life. I kept my head down. I had rubbed mud on my face and torn my tunic, but I still felt like I was wearing a neon sign. I didn't belong here. I moved too stiffly. I didn't have the swaying, predatory gait of a true underhiver. I was standing near a stall selling repurposed respirator filters when I felt eyes on me. Not the casual, assessing glances of thieves. This was different. It was a look of recognition. I froze. My hand went to the spanner tucked in my belt. It felt ridiculously light. Don't a voice said from behind me. Female. Rough, like she had gargled gravel. You pull that toy out here, they'll strip you clean before your body hits the mud. I turned slowly. She was leaning against a rusted support pillar. Hood pulled low. Leather armor pieced together from scraps. One of her eyes was real dark and sharp. The other was a cheap bionic. A bulky red lens that whirred as it focused on me. You have the look, she said. She didn't whisper. She didn't need to. The roar of the market swallowed our voices. What look, I asked? My throat was tight. The look of a man who has seen something that wants him dead. She stepped closer. She smelled of promethium and old blood. Local enforcers don't scare people like that. You're running from hive. I didn't answer. Silence is safer than lies down here. She smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was a rictus of tension. And then I heard it. When her jaw moved, there was a faint click. A mechanical catch in her cheek. Click. It was the exact same pitch as the sound in the data stream. My heart skipped a beat. Was she one of them, a lure sent by the Inquisition? No. She looked too desperate, too hungry. They're called the Inquisition, she said, dropping the voice even lower. And they don't stop hunting. Ever. How do you know, I managed to ask. Because they're hunting me too, she said. She spat on the ground. It was thick with blood. Name's Lyra. I was a courier. Transported a package I shouldn't have peeked into. Sound familiar? It sounded too familiar, like a reflection in a dirty mirror. What do you want, I asked. I have a way out, Lyra said. Her good eye darted around the market, scanning for threats. There's a rogue freighter captain. Owes me a favor. He can get us off-world, past the blockade, off-world. The word was like a drug. To leave Scintilla Prime. To leave the cold, the incense, the fear. It was a beautiful, impossible dream. Why tell me? Because I can't pay his fee alone, she said. And you? You have soft hands. Scholar's hands. She grabbed my wrist. Her grip was like an iron vice. She turned my palm up, revealing the ink stains on my calluses. Lex Mechanic, I nodded slowly. Good. The captain doesn't want thrones. He wants salvage. I found something. Old tech. Pre-heresy, maybe. But it's locked. Need a sacred code breaker to open it. She let go of my hand. You crack it, we both fly. You don't. We both die down here. Simple. It was a trap. Every instinct screamed it. Underhivers don't share escape routes. But what choice did I have? Remain alone until I starved or was found? Or follow this stranger with the clicking jaw into the dark? Show me, I said. She led me away from the market, deeper into the labyrinth. We moved through tunnels that hadn't seen light in centuries. The air grew thin and bitterly cold. We were far from the heat of the sump now. She didn't speak. She just moved with a terrifying, silent efficiency. I struggled to keep up, stumbling over rusted pipes. Every time I fell, she just stopped and watched me, her bionic eye whirring, patient, cold, like a vulture waiting for the inevitable. We finally reached a sealed bulkhead door. It was hidden behind a collapsed wall of rubble. She tapped a sequence onto a hidden keypad. The door hissed open. Inside it wasn't a treasure trove. It was a small, bare room. Just a cot, some ration crates, and a massive ancient Vox caster unit in the center. It was covered in dust, but the aquila stamped on it were pristine. That's it, I asked. That's our ticket, she said. She patted the metal casing of the machine. It's locked down tight. Machine spirit is angry. Won't let anyone in without the proper rights." She looked at me. For a second, the toughness dropped. I saw raw, naked terror in her real eye. It was a look I knew well. I saw it in the mirror every day. "Can you open it, Scholar?" she whispered. "Everything depends on it." I approached the machine. I placed my hands on the cold metal. I felt the faint vibration of a dormant power source deep inside. It felt hungry. I looked back at Lyra. She was standing by the door, one hand resting on the last pistol at her hip. Was she guarding me, or was she making sure I didn't leave? I turned back to the console. "I can open it," I said. And I began the rites of awakening. God, Emperor, forgive me. I should have let it sleep. I worked for hours. Time is different when you are terrified. It compresses and expands. My hands were steady. Training took over. I forgot where I was. I forgot the smell of sewage and the woman with the gun behind me. I was just Scholar Kale again, talking to a stubborn machine spirit. It was an old dialect of binary, thick with redundant encryption, beautiful in its own way, like unearthing a fossil intact. I whispered the rites of unlocking. My throat was dry, but the words were perfect. They had to be. The final seal gave way with a soft electronic chime. The rune screen flickered to life. Amber text scrolled across the dusty glass. I read it, and the cold returned. Instantly. It wasn't a data store. It wasn't salvage. It was a transponder. A high-gain encrypted Imperial beacon. It was inactive, waiting for a master code to wake it up. A code only a trained Lex mechanic would know. It wasn't designed to send data out. It was designed to bring something in. I stepped back from the console as if it were red hot. "This isn't a way out," I said. My voice sounded dead in the small room. "It's a lure." I turned to look at Lyra. She hadn't moved from the door. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the floor. Her last pistol was still in its holster. "They told me," she started. Her voice was shaking. The clicking in her jaw had stopped. It only happened when she was tense. Now she wasn't tense. She was just broken. "They said they wanted the one who could see the pattern," she whispered. "They said, if I gave them you, they would wipe my slate. No more hunting. I could just live." I understood then. The whole thing. The meeting in the market. The lucky escape route. It was all choreographed. She was just another layer of the trap. I wasn't a person to her. I was currency. I was the price of her freedom. I should have been angry. I should have picked up the spanner and fought. But I was just tired. So incredibly tired. "You can't trust them, Lyra," I said softly. "You know that." She looked up at me then. Tears were cutting clean tracks through the grime on her face. "I have to," she said. "It's all I have left." Then I smelled it. It drifted under the heavy blast door, overpowering the stink of the sump. Incense. Pure, expensive, high-spire incense. My stomach turned over. They hadn't just tracked us. They were already here, waiting outside the door for the beacon to activate, confirming I was the one who had done the work. A voice came from the other side of the door. It wasn't shouted. It didn't need to be. "The Emperor is merciful to the repentant," it said. It was him. The polite man with the silver tooth. His voice was calm, reasonable, terrifying. "Open the door, citizen. Your part is done." Lyra sobbed once, a horrible choked sound. She hit the release stud. The door didn't just open. It exploded inward with blinding white light. Combat lumens. I threw my hands up blinded. I saw silhouettes in the glare. Tall, bulky shapes in carapace armor, hellguns raised, and behind them a slimmer figure in midnight blue. The smell of incense washed over me, drowning me. It wasn't the smell of a church. It was the smell of a dissecting table. I didn't fight. I didn't run. I just fell to my knees. The cold metal of the floor felt like home. It was over. The hunt was done. Now the real pain would begin. I don't remember the journey up Hive. Mercy, perhaps. Or just standard procedure to drug the cargo. I woke up here. This room. It is blindingly white. No shadows. No dirt. After the sump, it felt like being skinned alive by cleanliness. There are no windows. Just one door seamless with the wall. I am sitting at a metal table, bolted to the floor. My hands are free. They didn't need to chain me. Where would I go? In the center of the table is my coin, the chip tequila. It sits precisely halfway between me and the empty chair opposite, just out of reach. I tried to take it when I first woke up. The table surface is magnetized. It wouldn't move. It's a simple lesson. Nothing here is yours. Not even the small things. I sat for hours, just staring at the Emperor's two heads on the coin. One blind to the past, one blind to the future. Fitting. The door didn't open. It just ceased to be there. A field dissolved and he walked through. It wasn't the polite man with the silver tooth. He was just a servant. This was the master. He was huge, armored in crimson carapace that looked like flayed muscle. He didn't wear a helmet. His face was a ruin of scars and silver augmentation studs. One eye was human pale and cold. The other was a ruby-red targeting lender. He didn't sit down. He just stood there filling the room. The air grew heavy. I felt a physical pressure against my chest, like standing too close to a reactor core. He smelled of nothing. Absolute, terrifying sterility. "Scholar Kyle," he said. His voice sounded like tectonic plates grinding together. Deep, resonant, inhuman. "I am Inquisitor Vane." I tried to speak. My voice died in my throat. I just nodded, like a bobblehead doll. Pathetic. "You have seen the weeping eye," he stated. It wasn't a question. "Yes, my lord. And it has seen you." He leaned forward, his mechanical eye word focusing on my pupil, measuring my terror in microns. "Curiosity is the first step to damnation, scholar. You took a leap. I expected torture. I expected them to flay me to get the truth. But he didn't ask why I opened the file. He didn't ask what I thought it meant. He only had one question. Who else?" "No one, my lord," I whispered. He didn't move. Think Kale. A word in the mess hall. A shared glance. The courier woman. She didn't know, I said quickly. Too quickly. She didn't see it. I swear by the throne. He watched me for a long, agonizing minute. Then he reached out. His armored gauntlet, massive and deadly, picked up the magnetized coin easily. He didn't look at it. He just closed his fist. There was a sound, like a dying insect. Crunch. He opened his hand. Dust. Silver dust. "It does not matter if they saw it," he said. "Knowledge is a plague. You are patient zero." He wasn't angry. That was the worst part. He wasn't judging me as a sinner. He was diagnosing me as a disease. And there is only one cure for this kind of sickness. "If you said nothing, their deaths will be quick," he said. "That is the only mercy I can offer you." He turned to leave. The field shimmered back into existence where the door should be. I was alone again, with the silver dust on the table. I realized then, they weren't afraid of what I knew. They were afraid that I was still alive to know it. Survival was my crime. He didn't leave. He just stood on the other side of the shimmering barrier, watching me. Like a scientist watching a specimen in a jar. "You think you saw chaos," Vane said. His voice was tinny, now filtered through the energy field. "You think you saw a cognito hazard that could break a world." I didn't answer. I had. I was sure of it. The weeping eye. The bleeding stars. It had felt sickeningly powerful. "That is the arrogance of the small mind," he continued. "You always think your sins are grand." He tapped a command into his gauntlet. The barrier dissolved again. He walked back to the table. He placed a small data slate on it. Face up. It showed the image, the same one that had burned my retinas. Clearer now. It wasn't weeping stars. It was a navigational overlay. Corrupted, yes. But just a map. Sector 99 Lambda Vein said. An operation sanctioned by Inquisitor Karras 3 years ago. He said the name Karras with a distinct lack of warmth, like he was spitting out a piece of gristle. It was a failure, a catastrophic waste of resources that yielded nothing but dead acolytes. I stared at the slate. It wasn't heresy, it was a receipt. He tried to bury it, Vane said. Purge the records. But he missed a fragment, a single echo in the deep void telemetry. He looked at me. Actually looked at me, not just through me. You didn't find a demon scholar. You found a mistake. The realization hit me harder than his fist could have. I wasn't being hunted because I was dangerous. I was being hunted because I was embarrassing. I was a loose thread in someone else's tapestry of lies. All of this, I whispered. My voice cracked. The kill team, the hunt, just for a mistake, Vane's mechanical eye word. I think it might have been his version of a shrug. Heresy can be fought with bolters, and faith, he said. But incompetence in our ranks is a deeper rot. It must be cauterized. He leaned in close. I could smell the ozone coming off his armor. Karras is my rival. This fragment is the leverage I needed to have him censured. He paused. You have served the Imperium today, Scholar Kyle. You were the useful idiot who found the smoking gun. I wanted to laugh. It bubbled up in my chest, hysterical and bitter. I wasn't a heretic. I was just office supplies. A tool used once and then discarded because it's cheaper than cleaning it. What happens now? I asked. I already knew the answer. The evidence is secured, Vane said, picking up the slate. The tool is no longer needed. He looked down at the silver dust on the table. The remains of my coin. You are the last loose end, Kyle, and I am very thorough. He turned and walked away. This time he didn't look back. The barrier didn't reactivate. Instead, 2 servitors lumbered in. Their arms were replaced with heavy surgical servo tools. They didn't smell like incense. They smelled like old dried blood and antiseptic. I didn't struggle when they grabbed me. There was no point. I finally understood my place in the universe. I was dust, waiting to be swept away. They didn't drag me to the apothecarian. I walked. There is no dignity in fighting gravity. The corridors changed as we went deeper. The blinding white walls turned to brushed steel. The air grew colder, and the smell changed. It was subtle at first. Underneath the heavy incense and the sharp tang of industrial antiseptic, it was the smell of wet copper. And something else. Something like pork cooking on a high-heat griddle. It took me a moment to realize what it was. Cauterized flesh. We passed through heavy blast doors that hissed open with hydraulic sighs. The sound hit me first. It wasn't screaming. Screaming would have been human. This was a cacophony of wet mechanics. Drills whining at high pitches, bone saws grinding, the rhythmic monotone chanting of tech priests blessing their instruments. Cut, cauterize, sanctify. It was a factory floor, but the raw materials were people. The room was vast, cathedral-like vaulted ceilings lost in smoke and shadows. Hundreds of steel slabs were arranged in neat rows. Most were occupied. I saw faces I recognized. Worker 9 Beta from the nutrient line. His eyes were open, staring at the ceiling. He wasn't screaming. He was just gone. A servitor with a multi-laser limb was methodically burning entry points into his skull. Smoke curled up from his temples. He didn't even blink. They had already cut the nerve stems. Further down, I saw the supervisor from Shift 47. The red-robed man who used to scare me. He was on a slab too. Incompetence is also a sin, it seems. They weren't just killing us. Death is a waste of resources. The Imperium does not waste. We were being recycled, scrubbed clean of the inconvenient software called personality, repurposed into something useful, something that doesn't ask questions, something that doesn't listen to clicks in the data stream. The servitors guided me to an empty slab. It was wet. They hadn't had time to fully clean it from the previous occupant. I lay down. The metal was freezing against my back. It sucked the heat right out of my bones. Leather straps, stiff with old fluids, tightened around my wrists and ankles. Not tight enough to hurt, just tight enough to be absolute. A tech priest glided over to me. He was more brass than flesh. His face was a collection of glowing green lenses. He didn't look at me. He looked at a data slate plugged into the side of my slab. Subject the fort coil, his voice grated. Synthesized. Flat. Variant pattern mental divergence detected. Recommended full cortical scrub. Another voice, unseen, chanted a response. Blessed is the mind, too small for doubt. The tech priest extended a limb. It wasn't a hand. It was a gleaming chrome skull cap trailing thick black cables. He lowered it toward my head. I wanted to scream then. Not from pain, but from the sheer, overwhelming horror of being erased. I was going to die in this room, but my body would keep walking. It would keep working. Forever. The cap fitted snugly over my scalp. Little needles slid out, piercing the skin. Just a pinch, like a cold insect bite. I felt a hum begin. Not in my ears, in the meat of my brain. It vibrated behind my eyes. The tech priest began to chant. Binary canticles, zeros and ones, the language of the pure machine. My vision started to tunnel. The gray ceiling above me began to dissolve into static. Green static, like the data stream. I tried to hold on to something. A memory. My name. Kyle. I am Scholar Kyle. I worked at Station Scintilla Prime. I found a click. The hum got louder. It became the only thing in the world. Kyle was slipping away, like water down a drain. I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't curious. I was just ready to be useful. Finally. Truly useful. White noise took me, and it was so very, very quiet. The cold does not bother me now. I register the temperature, 0 degrees Celsius, optimal for cogitator function. It is just data. It does not make me shiver. I do not shiver. Shivering is inefficient. My station is Sector 7 Gamma. It is the same station. But I am new. I have been improved. My left eye is gone, replaced by a high-speed optical feed directly linked to the stream. I see the data faster now. Green light is all I see. My right hand is gone, replaced by a multi-key input jack. It does not get tired. It does not cramp. It just clicks. Rhythmically. Perfectly. Click, clack. Click, clack. I can still hear the hum of the room. It is louder now. Or perhaps I am just listening better. My ears have been augmented to filter out non-essential auditory input, like screams, or weeping, or questions. I do not need to hear those things to do my job. Sometimes I hear voices near me, faint fuzzy signals that my audio filters have deemed low priority. That's him, a voice says, young, nervous, biological, the one from before. They say he saw something, went mad. Quiet 9 beta. Do your work. I do not turn my head. Turning my head is not in my programming protocols unless instructed. I just keep typing. Input. Verify. Purge. The words drift away. They are just noise. I am good at filtering noise. I am the best at it now. I have no curiosity to slow me down. I have no fear to make my fingers shake. I am pure purpose. I am free. Then it happens again. Cycle 894, deep in a stream of comm chatter from the ghoul stars. a microsecond of static variation. Click, the same sound, sharp, wet, deliberate. My audio sensors register it. My logic engine analyzes it. Pattern mismatch, non-standard signal. Previously, this would have caused a biological reaction. Adrenaline, fear, curiosity. Now it just causes a subroutine to activate. Protocol Omicron delete. My input jack moves faster than human thought. It highlights the anomaly. It does not save it for later. It does not wonder where it came from. It just hits the purge rune. Gone. Deleted in 0.04 seconds. Efficiency rating 100%. The click is gone. The silence remains. It is a perfect silence. I keep working. The incense smells sweet. The machine is happy. And I am unbroken. Glossary one-liners. Lex Mechanic, a low-ranking tech adept or scribe who processes raw data blindly. Data crypt. Vast, freezing underground halls where the Imperium stores ancient information. Servitor A, lobotomized human enslaved with mechanical parts to perform simple tasks forever. Inquisition, the secret police of the Imperium that hunts heretics, traitors, and aliens. Aquila, the double-headed eagle symbol of the Imperium, also slang for currency bearing it. Cogitator, an archaic, bulky computer often part organic or considered holy. Machine spirit, the semi-mystical soul believed to inhabit all Imperial technology. Omnissiah, the machine god worshipped by the tech priests, often viewed as the emperor. Underhive sump, the brutal, lawless lowest levels of a massive hive city. Voxcaster, a standard Imperial radio or communication device. Promethium, a generic term for combustible fuel similar to napalm or oil.